what common mistakes do you guys see making when they're facing a divorce and getting into a divorce?
I think it depends on the circumstances. I mean, there are, you look at divorce and the major issues are split into kind of two different types. One is financial, and then the other is if there are kids involved. And so if we kind of focus on the financial issues, there are certain things that guys just typically do that it can really come back, and this is universal across the country and the world really. And that is when guys freak out and they are protective, they will oftentimes drain that bank account and or try to really power themselves through, and they'll try to control the woman with financials, and that can really come back to haunt them. On the flip side, I also see guys that just throw a ton of money to try to make the emotional issues just go away. And so they'll just, spend a bunch of money trying to kind of keep the relationship. And it really kind of gets back to, like, if you have to buy your wife some sort of car or something, is that a relationship? Is that a sustainable model for your marriage? I mean, and generally the answer is no. And so oftentimes, guys will really regret that. There's other things that we can get into on financials, but for kids, I think that when there's stress, certainly if there's an argument and you lose your cool and you end up, it ends up getting physical, that is something that, typically guys are more prone to doing. And that is one of the worst ways to start off a divorce when domestic violence is involved. Telling the kids way more than they need to know. I mean, they're kids and they don't deserve your issues. And you got to keep that between you. And then I guess the other thing is, really kind of not being engaged with your kids, because there's going to be a change if divorce is on the horizon. Then, just thinking that the status quo, where you don't show up at the doctor's appointments and you don't show up at the parent-teacher conferences and you don't know the name of the doctor or your kid's teacher because that's just what she always did. If you think that that's going to continue and is going to be sustainable, and you still want to be, an active, father, you need to change and you need to show up. And I think that the final point I'll make is that I think oftentimes guys are really caught off guard in a divorce. I cannot tell you, Sean, how many times I've had friends, prospective clients, just be completely floored by the fact that their wife comes to them and says, I'm unhappy. And then when they, in retrospect, they're like, you know what? I'm fucking miserable too. And, that I think really kind of taking a step back and thinking, about how, your relationship is. And if you've been talking about divorce, a lot of guys just, are naive and they don't think that it's actually going to really happen. But those are, certainly some things. Just sticking your head in the sand. Guys just typically do that. And the wife, when she says, hey, can we do therapy, or we need to work on this? They usually kind of make up their mind a year and then finally kind of pull the divorce card, and the guy will say, I want to try, divorce counseling or try, therapy. And the woman has, she was done like a year ago. I mean, that's just a traditional kind of model or circumstance that I see.
Right. It seems like they're just different ways of processing for men and women. Like women, a lot of men get upset because the women move on so quickly. And it's like, how did they move on so quickly? It's because they started processing the breakup 6 months before they actually approached you, which sounds like it could be their fault, but it's actually your fault for not being attentive. So that's interesting that you've observed the same thing, because I've observed a lot of that in men's group.